Okay, this is V7, part of the service repair video series. This video is going to take us through, we already have created the work order, and now we're going to go into that work order and we're going to take it from completion, moving it to QuickBooks, closing it out in QuickBooks, and sending the customer an invoice. And Sean's going to step us through this, and we'll just talk through it as we do it. Go ahead, Sean.
All right, so first things first, go to the work orders tab and look up the customer in question.
That's PAR, P-A-R-R. He types it in. Go ahead.
So it shows up right here. Seeing as it's on this screen right now, that indicates that it was never closed or invoiced. So if the technician went out and did it and they forgot to close it. So we click on the work order, it shows up down here at the bottom, and this is where all the controls are. So first and foremost, we actually have to close it.
That's if the technician did not close it in the field, we're closing it in the office for them.
Correct, and then wherever the hours are that they actually spent on
How
the
did you get
job,
the number of hours?
I would have had to communicate with the technician and find out how long they were on site, or check their GPS tracker to verify how long they were on site.
Okay.
Comments were one-time clean successful.
Who can see these comments?
This is closed comments. It's for a quick reference for the office.
It's just for the office.
One-time clean successful, customer very happy. So, and whenever you get done with all this information, you can actually create the invoice right here. It comes in the tab. So we got yes or no. It's automatically check mark yes. Close the work order. Now it's actually disappeared from the screen. Reason for that is because it went from the schedule status. Schedule status was not completed. Now it actually is closed, and it is actually invoiced. So we can just go to the closed.
So it moved it through the kind of the status of a given work order.
Yes, so it went through the schedule status is now closed, invoiced. It's right here, which is one that we'll be working on. So now we got to push it to QuickBooks.
So let's talk about, just to summarize, so we scheduled it, the technician went out and did the work. He did not close this job. He could have closed it from his handheld. In the office, we closed the job, and now we need to send it to QuickBooks and invoice. Go ahead.
Correct. So got that. That's all done. So now we have to move back to the Home tab and go over to Managing Receivables. What will happen is it's going to give you the options for the month, the year, the transaction. We're in the month of May, and we're dealing with a work order. Click that, and we have our giant pop-up. It'll automatically go all the way down to the bottom.
So show us how you kind of look at this and what the difference. Maybe talk us through the screen just a little bit.
Essentially, these are all the work orders that have been happening throughout the month of May. If they are yellow, they're still waiting to be released into QuickBooks, and if they're green, they have already been taken care of, pushed all the way into QuickBooks.
Hold with me on the nomenclature just a little bit. When I created the work order, I had a release to technician.
Correct.
Okay, and so is this the nomenclature they use to release it now to QuickBooks?
Correct.
Okay.
So essentially what we'll do is we're only going to work with this one right now, but here's what we're working on. Check mark it as a good force of habit, and then you can just come over here and hit release.
Hang on a second. Okay, go ahead.
There's a release for one option, but there's a second option for multiples. I'm going to hit that right fast. If you're doing multiple work order releases, you can actually do it right here.
Oh, so that tick mark right there, you could have released them at the same
You
time.
can release all four of them at the same time, but I got to do some forensics. Release all those at the same time, or you can just hit this button right here, which is
Okay, and Sean said an important thing. Instead of releasing them all at the same time, go take a look at each one and make sure they're done correctly before releasing them in QuickBooks.
Yeah. I want to know why all these say 0. Hit OK. That's always going to pop up.
He laughed about that, but he's curious on why all of them are 0 because that was $0. Scott's kind of curious about that too.
Yeah. Once it releases, it goes from yellow, and then it turns blue. So now that it's turned blue, it's letting you know that it's ready to go to QuickBooks.
All right, and so if there is a legend down here in the bottom of these colors.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have on hold, which is waiting to be released, and then you release it
To QuickBooks.
We release it in the process of releasing to QuickBooks, yes. And then it turns blue, which is sync pending. Now, essentially, and based on the terminology, it's turned blue, so we're actually trying to sync it now.
Now, QuickBooks syncs periodically, right?
Yes.
So it's not a real-time, immediate item. I think it's set till every 10 minutes or something like that. I don't know.
I think it's
Can you
every,
push
it's like
it?
It'll auto push. Essentially, what would happen is if I went through all of these, if I went through every single one of these and I check marked and released all of them in 15 minutes or whatnot, wherever the timer is set to,
Okay.
it'll just push them all into QuickBooks automatically, which I don't like for that to happen.
It pulls them, you don't
Yeah,
push
it'll,
it.
it'll pull them straight through.
So once again, that blue item is pending
A sync.
sync, which is probably 10 or 15 minutes. It'll move it over there. Go ahead.
Correct. But we're gonna force it, and so that would actually be onto this screen.
How did you force it?
We're about to, but you want to come over here.
Oh, you're going to pull it to force it.
Yeah. So
Which
we
one?
We actually have our little tab right here. It's always underneath the QuickBooks, the QB.
Okay.
We just click that and then just kind of wait.
Okay, so that is kind of an auxiliary QuickBooks little process. It's actually developed by Ion, and it's the linkage between Ion and QuickBooks. So he did this item within Ion saying sync pending, and then he went over to the QuickBooks type area and hit that little button below QuickBooks, and that forced it.
Yeah. It brings up our little dialog screen. Essentially what will happen now is by check marking this far left box, it's going to grab hold of everything that I am waiting to sync, that I have check marked in Ion currently, which is just that one. And then I'll update the selected. By pressing this, every check mark that I have in Ion right now will go straight to QuickBooks.
Okay, so this is that force release over to QuickBooks. Keep going.
I gotta wait for it to do this now.
Talk us through the rest of the stuff, why this is happening.
Essentially what's going to happen is it's going to go to a full upload. It's going to push this into QuickBooks, which generates the actual invoice. Next step, we're going to go find the PAR sample in the customer's database for QuickBooks. Go ahead and open up that invoice and charge the card. So usually when it hits about 76 or so,
So you can see the timeline down there.
yeah, whenever it hits about 76, it always does this little thing. You can go ahead and pull up the customer while you wait. So now I'm in the QuickBooks. I'm using the customer's drop down menu to get into the customer center right there. Pulls it up. And now I can actually search out the invoice. So we have PAR sample. Notice the balance, $200. Click here. We actually have the invoice ready to go. It's under transactions, show all permitted transactions. Then I can just double click here. Now I have the invoice ready to go. The representative is the technician that actually performed the work. So we're just using it as a test. So I'm just going to put my name on that. There we go. And now we can go over to receive payments. If there's a payment method on file, this is just a save menu. Just asking if you want to save it. Yes. If you want to keep the rep, yes. Now we're actually in the payment tab where we can now click the Visa. And if there's payment method on the file, there's a test, so there isn't one, we could actually then process the payment from this point.
Is once that payment information is put in and that button is hit, am I done?
No, once that has been done and it's processed, you would just go through the entire deal of saving and closing, which it's not going to let me because we didn't actually process any money. It'll create a secondary invoice, which is there's the invoice and it'll show payment on the type. It'll actually let you know that the invoice was 200, the payment was 200, and what you want to do to finish it all up is actually send out the email indicating this invoice was paid. So once you run that card and it goes through successful, right underneath the invoice it'll say paid right here. Then you just go to the email tab at the top, email the invoice, and as long as there's an email on file, bam, we're good to go. I can send it now. Hit OK through all the little pop-ups that are going to come through. And now that customer has an invoice letting them know they've paid it, and then you can just save and close, back on out, and you're done.
Okay, that takes us all the way from the tech did not close out in the field, so the office closed it out and pushed it all the way through, syncing to QuickBooks, etc., etc. All right, the end.